see that. I happen to have a wonderful doctor, an MD, and he believes in both.
Yes.
So we get along good.
Yeah. And there are many out there. They're just not the ones that you're going to see on a public platform.
No, no, you're not. You have to search them out to find them, and I did, and it was great. He's great.
Yeah.
So, you say, all right, maybe we'll show them your book, because we're going to talk about your book.
Sure. Which one?
Well, you can show them all, one at a time. The Path.
This is The Path of Emotion. This is my most recent book about the emotions being basically our guidance system and how they translate subtle energy information. It's Path of Emotion. And this is The Path of Energy, which basically describes energetic reality and how to interact with it through our intention.
That's great.
And that this was the book that my husband and I just finished. That is, I think you had him on to talk about this book. Yeah, On the Edge of Reality, which is where we're all living.
Yeah, it's quite an eye-opener. Quite an eye-opener.
He talked about facing some criticism too early on.
He had it from all directions because he originally was an electro engineer, electromechanic, I don't know what you call it. He worked for the government in England, local government, and oversaw all the electrical, running of southern England and south central southern England, I don't know. And so when he got involved in crop circles, when he saw crop circles, wasn't satisfied with the explanations and began to investigate it, that whole community of people just tossed him out, and he was considered pretty, crazy. And then in his research, when he discovered that people were part of the phenomenon and that people were an important part of the phenomenon, that while there is this mysterious force going on, people are interacting with that force and often under direction of that force, then he got annihilated by, people who believe that crop circles are only made by a mysterious force and that other people aren't involved at all. So it's like he got ostracized from all directions.
But he kept true to his word and his path.
He kept true to his path, and I admire him a lot for that. He never gives up. He follows the evidence, and if he was wrong in interpreting the evidence, then he admits it. He's one of the few people I know who will do that. I certainly won't know.
All right, so were we going to ask a question about the emotions from the most recent book? Is that where you were
I think it
headed?
was, what do you mean by the key to understanding subtle energy lies within our emotions? Part one of that question.
So if you accept that we live in a world, like if you go back to quantum mechanics and look at the world that is presented through quantum mechanics, that it's an energetic reality that we live in, and we discern this very small window of that energetic reality that we call physical matter. We're geared to interact with this whole world. We have ears that hear, certain frequencies, and eyes that see certain frequencies, and our bodies decode other frequencies that are outside of the range of those senses. And if you look back at some ancient traditions, and in fact every ancient tradition talks about energy centers in the body that are interacting with this external subtle energy, if you will, and bringing it into the body, running it in channels. And so these centers in Western thinking, we've accepted the Hindu version of these centers, and we call them chakras. But Native Americans, Native Americans talk about these centers as well, and they have different names for them. And the Australian Aborigines talk about them and have names for them. So we've chosen the Hindu name of chakra, and what these chakras do is basically receive very specific information or subtle energy frequencies, and frequencies carry information, and it brings it into our body and decodes it, and then gives it as information to our body that we can understand and interact with. And so what is that information? It's basically emotions. I mean, you go into a room and you feel, before anyone has said a word, before you've seen anybody, the person can even be behind the door and you can feel, oh, something's wrong here, someone's really angry, there's been a fight, or something wonderful is going on here. Your body feels that, has taken in that information, has translated it to an emotion that you then feel and react and respond to. So subtle energy information gives us our gut gut level knowledge, really, our gut instincts, if you will.
Gut instincts, yeah.
And most of that information is conveyed through emotions. And we also have body sensations that confirm those emotions. You know, someone says something, it feels absolutely true, and you get goosebumps all through your body. So
Right.
your body
That's
sensations
biggie.
confirm those emotional realities. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a biggie. We do that a lot of times. We feel, oh, I'm getting goosebumps. We know that it's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I think that a lot of people experience it, almost everyone, but they don't pay attention to it. I think
That's
that,
right.
you know, maybe the show will help them to see that. Pay attention to it.
That's right.
It's happening.
And that's really all energy awareness is paying attention to the shifts in your emotion and the body sensations that you have that don't have an obvious cause, and then stopping and looking around and saying, well, what does this relate to? What else is happening besides what I'm feeling here? And then you begin to realize, oh, gee, every time I do this, X, Y, and Z happens, and you begin to develop your language of energy awareness.
And energy can stay in a place. It can stay in a house. It can be around, you know, because I remember when we were being shown to look for a new house, and I walked into this one house, and the feeling that I got was very depressing, very low energy, very sadness. Oh, really sadness, you know. I had to get out of there.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, so everything has an electromagnetic field to it. You know, it doesn't matter if it's a chair or a house, or everything has an electromagnetic field, and that field can receive imprints. And since so much of our energy is conveyed through emotion, it's largely emotional imprints that get held, and then we pick up on them when we go in. Dean Radin, one of Dean Radin's experiments that he did was he was experimenting with our ability to know things in advance. And so he had people hooked up to monitors that measured their body's reactions, and he would show them pictures. Pictures that were evocative of different emotions. And of course what we expect is that if I show you a picture of a child being hurt, you're going to have a certain reaction that will be picked up on the monitor, versus if I show you a picture of a child being picked up and loved and hugged, you're going to have a different reaction. Well, what he found is that before the card had been turned over, and nobody knew which card was being turned over when, the body reacted 3 seconds before the person saw the card.
Really?
So the body knew this information 3 minutes before any action had taken place, which means that everything has this wave, this bow wave that's traveling on this energy carrier.
Ahead of time, so to speak.
And what he discovered was that the cards that had the greater amount of emotion related to them had the strongest physiologic impression on the person. So the heart rate would burst, and the sweating and the different things that he was measuring would happen more acutely. And so, you know, the idea being that emotions and energy are connected to each other. They're related to each other. I see it as you know, emotions are the information, and energy is the carrier wave.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
You know, I had shared with you before we started the show that I work with children, and have been inspired to try to encourage their intuition to stay with them and not go, and working with teachers to guide them. And I often talk about, for teachers, if we pick up boredom within the classroom, that's your pivot emotion. If you can organize that child and engage them in something and elevate them up the emotional spiral, you'll be great. If you miss that opportunity, it's just going to spiral downwards quickly. And I think they're starting to see it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
great.
So that boredom is your little window.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to watch the kids because they're just so pure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, they're so pure with what they're feeling.
Which is a really good point, because what we have come to believe about emotions is that there are good emotions and there are bad emotions, and really what we're saying is that there are comfortable and uncomfortable emotions, because all emotions do two things. All emotions give you information about the environment that you're in, externally or internally. It can be telling you about yourself. I recently was asked to do a series of projects with somebody, and I couldn't really think of why not. It all made sense, but the resistance inside of me was just huge. And I kept trying to ignore it and do this project with the person, and eventually I just sat down and listened to the resistance and realized what it was trying to tell me and why this project didn't fit me. So it was an uncomfortable place to be, but it was giving me real information. And so normal everyday emotions rise with the information that they have to give you. You receive it and they go down. It's like you don't stay with emotions forever. They come and they go. When we decide that it's too uncomfortable and we don't want to feel it and we don't want to listen to the information, then we repress them and suppress their information, and then they stay with us for an awful long time, and they become saboteurs to our life. The other thing that emotions give you is energy. It's like when you're angry about something, it's telling you your boundaries have been stepped on, and you immediately have energy to do something about it, right? So you have two things, and every emotion is like that. So if we can get away from, or what this book tries to talk about is extracting the information so that we don't have to stay up there on this uncomfortable emotion, and then using the energy of it to do something in a heart-centered action, to take a heart-centered action.
And release it and go forward. And
you don't even have to release it. You have to, releasing it's like utilize it. It's energy. How can you utilize that energy? It's not good and it's not bad. It carried information, and maybe the information was uncomfortable. You use that information and you use the energy of that moment to create a positive action in your life. Yeah.
I may be thinking the wrong thing, but can this also be called like vibration?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can be called a vibration, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I know that sometimes if I'm out in crowds, in stores with people, lots of people crowded, I can only stay a while. I start to feel all these things coming at me, and it's like it's confusing. I start to feel confused, and I said, I've got to leave now.
Yeah.
I had enough. I've got to get out away from here. I'm very sensitive to that.
Yep.
So that's the same thing then. It's coming from all the different people.
Yeah, so basically what's happening in that situation is that your boundaries between your emotional content and the emotional content of the people around you is more resonant and less strong, and so other people's emotions are coming into your field better than is what's maybe healthy for you in that moment. That capacity is really helpful when we're in sessions with people. It's not so helpful when you're out in the grocery store, and so it's learning how to make a strong boundary for yourself. And so energetically, we have this area around us that is our personal space, and that has been called, again, in Hindu tradition, has been called the aura. And that aura is our emanation, and everything inside of that represents our thoughts and our beliefs and the frequency that we're presenting to the world as us. So when someone steps into that space in a harmful way, we're angry, to go back to that example, and we have a burst of energy. Well, what do we want to do with that energy? We want to use it to strengthen our boundary. And so in your situation, too, you want to take your personal energy, put it into your boundary so that those thoughts and those overrides can't impact you at a time when it's not convenient to be impacted.
So how would one do that?
Yeah, in my book, The Path of Emotion, I talk about different energy exercises. So in Chinese medicine, you're taught that energy follows the mind, that where the mind goes, where your attention goes. Attention is your most powerful tool. And where your attention goes, your energy will follow. So all I really have to do is put my attention on that boundary and notice it and think about it and see it as big, and my energy will immediately go and do that for me.
Okay.
Immediately. It's like the crier going before the king.
That's good. That's very good way to know. Good way to do that,
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No.
So because you walk in the store, blah, 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 I'm happy, blah, blah, then get halfway through the store and you start going, you know. So yeah, that's a good thing to do. That's great. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lisa.
No,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Well,
You go.
There's just so much to say. No, I was just curious about the book offers a lot of insights like that into different personal situations people might find themselves in, and how they can start to take some control over this.
Yeah, I talk more conceptually, I think, than personally. Like I don't say, you know, when you're with your boss and your boss does this, you do X, Y, and Z, but I will talk about when certain emotions come up. This is what that emotion is gifting you with energetically, and how can, you know, so how can you, I give a fourfold process for how you can receive the information and then assist that energy in a heart-centered way to create a positive outcome for yourself. You know, and then in the path of energy, I give energy exercises that you can do, meditations that you can do, where you're shifting your attention to different parts of your energy structure in order to create different energetic effects, like strengthening your boundary.
Okay.